Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amit Harari, and coming up in today's newscast. High Court of Justice deliberating fate of incapacitation law amidst Netanyahu's corruption trial. Israelis officially gaining visa-free access to the United States, easing travel hassles and strengthening bilateral ties. And later, Israel thwarting Iran-backed terror cell's plot to assassinate the national security minister. The High Court of Justice today deliberated on whether to postpone the implementation of the incapacitation law, a move that critics claim was designed to benefit Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is facing corruption charges. The High Court of Justice deliberated on whether to delay the application of the incapacitation law until the next Knesset session. This comes as critics argue that the law was passed within the intent of benefiting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, currently facing corruption charges. Originally, the law passed in March modified the conditions for declaring a prime minister unfit for service. Under the amendment to Basic Law, the government, a prime minister could only be removed from office for medical reasons. Netanyahu's trial is centered around 3 charges of corruption and a conflict of interest deal he made in 2020 to prevent any potential influence over the trial. The deal restricted his powers, including the ability to appoint or remove law enforcement officials, judges, or prosecutors involved in his trial. Critics also raised concerns about the July 24 reasonableness standard bill, which they say removes the requirement for officials to explain the reasonableness of their policies and allows for the political replacement of civil servants. As the court deliberated, hundreds of anti-government protesters gathered near Netanyahu's residence, expressing their concerns about the recusal law's impact on Israeli democracy. Police presence was significant, with some arrests made. Justice Minister Yariv Levin has framed the court hearing as a discussion on whether to cancel the election results, emphasizing the law's role in shielding prime ministers from court-mandated recusal. Knesset attorney Yitzhak Bart argues that the recusal law doesn't permit prime ministers to engage in conflict of interest, despite criticism. The justices, however, are skeptical of this argument. Chief Justice Esther Chayut clarifies that the court's injunction doesn't seek to abolish the law entirely, but addresses when it should be applied. This, as Justice Ofer Groskopf raises concerns about whether a government can alter the rules during its tenure, indicating a complex legal debate on the matter. And joining us now to elaborate on today's hearing at the High Court in Jerusalem is journalist and JNS Jerusalem Bureau Chief Alex Traiman. Alex, the High Court is today considering the recusal law. What is the significance of their eventual ruling?
Well, this is part of the big tug-of-war between the judiciary and the elected government of the State of Israel. And the Attorney General has threatened to potentially recuse the Prime Minister for violating a conflict of interest. Because Netanyahu is on trial, the Attorney General had made him sign a conflict of interest agreement saying that Netanyahu could not deal with any issues that pertain with his trial. Anything like that. And yet judicial reform has been a major tenet of his policy since he got into office. So what happened is that the government tried to pass a law which would forbid the Attorney General or the High Court from recusing a prime minister, making a prime minister step down, except under the severe issues of incapacitation due to health. If the High Court will turn down this law, overturn the law, then that could set up a challenge where the Supreme Court or the Attorney General could ask Netanyahu to leave office.
You know, and we heard different comments during the day, during the hearing from Rothman, from Levin, from Smotrich. What has each one to say? What did they say? What did they comment?
Well, basically, Rothman and Levin are saying that it's illegitimate that the High Court would even have such a hearing, that the High Court should not be able to overturn laws which were passed as basic laws. So this is a big question over what powers the Supreme Court actually has to review certain types of legislation, and that if they do overturn this law, that essentially they would be negating the choice of the voters who put this government into power, including with Netanyahu as the prime minister, with the full knowledge that Netanyahu was already under trial.
Did we even hear anything from Netanyahu, meanwhile, in recent hours?
Well, Netanyahu's staying quiet on this because the big question that the High Court is raising is whether this law was passed in a personal nature. And it is clear that to a certain extent that it has been passed specifically to protect Netanyahu from an unusual and unprecedented situation in which we've never seen a High Court or an Attorney General tell Prime Minister that they needed to step down over a conflict of interest. So in order to prevent that, sure, the Prime Minister and his government did pass a law that was made to create a further separation of powers between the branches. But the government argues that this is a law that doesn't apply only to Netanyahu, will apply to every and all Prime Minister following the passage.
Alex, the Knesset lawyer told the court that while there is a personal nature of the recusal law to protect Prime Minister Netanyahu, it was meant to protect all prime ministers in the future also. Was the law personal in nature? And if so, the court is likely to rule that it's illegal. I mean, no?
Well, that's what we need to see. Will the court decide that it has the power to rule on a basic law? Will the court rule that this law has no place except for the personal nature that the government is being accused of passing it for? And also, I think it's important to just look at what's happening around the world and particularly in Israel with Netanyahu and his corruption cases, is that the criminalization of government officials is becoming a new trend. And so the question is, can the High Court, can the Attorney General ask a Prime Minister to step down over a conflict of interest that they created for the Prime Minister himself?
You know, it seems that with this government especially, and I'm really being really careful, several of its laws are colored by personal motives to benefit, Deri or Netanyahu. It's unbecoming of the Knesset. Is it? I mean, is it not?
Well, it does seem like it's unbecoming of the Knesset on the one hand, but it's also being met. It is a response to a sort of unbecoming nature of the prosecution and the courts to continue to rule in a personal nature against Netanyahu. So, yeah, we're in a very bad situation right here where the court and the government are both upping the ante, taking steps that they normally shouldn't be able to take. And it's really the question of who's more powerful in the balance of powers between the branches and who's going to win this tug of war. We're seeing it playing out time and again over the last several months, and it's going to continue to play itself out in the coming weeks with further rulings.
How do you see this continuing now? We're far from being done.
It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen. I mean, that's we can. There's definitely a situation in which the court could take a more lenient approach or look for a way out of it. The Attorney General had suggested perhaps that this law should be allowed to go into law with the beginning of the next Knesset, which would then force the coalition to really put on the table whether this was a personal law or whether it's a law for all time. And then, would the Attorney General, who is clearly not working to protect the interests of the government, quite the opposite, she's working against the policies of the government, actually really serving as the head of the opposition in the position. She's not representing the government in these cases. So would she, in fact, ask the Prime Minister to step down? This is an unheard of situation in a democracy.
Of course. Alex, always a pleasure having you with us. Happy Sukkot, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
In a major boost to bilateral ties, the U.S. has announced that Israel has been admitted to the Visa Waiver program. The move means that beginning in about 2 months, Israelis will be able to travel to the United States visa-free. And ILTV's Steve Leibovich has more.
After long being forced to wait many months to apply for and secure a visa, Israelis will enter the United States visa-free. Israeli citizens will only be required to fill out the electronic system travel authorization form several days before embarking on a tourism or business trip to the U.S. for up to 90 days in length. The agreement required that Israel meet conditions including easing restrictions on Palestinian Americans visiting Israel, Judea, and Samaria. The U.S. still needs time to prepare its electronic systems for Israel's admittance into the system, and it's expected to be in place by the end of November. Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas made the official announcement.
Let me be among the first to say congratulations. We are excited to welcome Israel as the 41st country into the Visa Waiver program. At its heart, this program will further strengthen the ties between our two countries. This truly is an exciting day for the United States and Israel, and we hope to see you in America soon. Till then, lehitraot.
Prime Minister Netanyahu hailed the agreement, as did the Israeli lobby, AIPAC.
רק 40 ממדינות העולם פטורות מוויזה, וכעת גם ישראל הצטרפה לרשימה. וההחלטה הזאת היא עדות נוספת לקשרים החזקים בין ישראל לארצות הברית.
Until now, Israelis who wanted to visit the United States had to first obtain a visa, an onerous process that could often take many months. Now, that has changed. With Israel joining the Visa Waiver program, Israelis can visit the United States for up to 90 days without a visa, providing a major boon to business and tourism between the two countries.
Biden officials said the U.S. would continue to monitor Israel's compliance with the Visa Waiver program requirements and reserves the right to suspend or terminate Israel's membership in the program.